All right, here is your spring final. Remember, for my classes, you have the note card that you can use, and then that's it. You have a total of 40 questions. If you look, the back page is matching, and so 1 through 24 should be multiple choice. Okay, so I'm going to start here with number 1. It says, use the Venn diagram in your knowledge of social studies to answer the following questions. You see William Lloyd Garrison and Frederick Douglass. The Venn diagram has, what do they have in common? So you have Garrison, who published The Liberator, a printer, Baptist from Boston. You have Frederick Douglass, who published The North Star, writer, orator, or speaker from New York. So what term belongs to in place of the question mark in the Venn diagram? So the women's rights movement, the temperance movement, the abolitionist movement, or the educational reform. So these two had a part in what movement? Number 2, it's from the National Archives and Records Administration. It says Black Codes was a name given to laws passed by Southern governments established during the presidency of Andrew Johnson. These laws imposed severe restrictions on freedmen, such as prohibiting their right to vote, forbidding them to sit on juries, and limiting their right to testify against white men. They were also forbidden from carrying weapons in public places and working in certain occupations. So it says Southern states passed the codes described in this excerpt in order to what? Okay, so kind of like, what's the purpose of the Black Codes? Why did they pass these in the South? So you gotta go back and look at the quote. Is it F, limit the effects of the Reconstruction Amendments? G, increase the labor supply for factory jobs in the North? H, decrease the number of Northern representatives in Congress? Or J, improve relations with the Democratic Party? All right, number 3. Which president was established by the Supreme Court ruling in Marbury versus Madison? So this is precedent, like first thing, when it was established in Marbury versus Madison. A, the federal government has the power to regulate trade among the states. State governments lack the authority to regulate federal bureaus. C, federal courts determine the constitutionality of a law. Or D, state courts lack the authority to hear cases challenging federal laws. So what does Marbury versus Madison do? Number 4, in the early 19th century, which section of the country tended to oppose or be against tariffs? F, the South, G, New England, H, the West, and J, the Mid-Atlantic. So which section of the country, of those 4, tended to be against or not like tariffs? You gotta think about what a tariff is. All right, number 5. These speakers are debating an issue that eventually became known as so you got to go look at Speaker 1 and Speaker 2. Speaker 1 says, a state has the right to overrule an act passed by Congress. After all, the national government is supposed to share power with the states. Speaker 2, I believe that you are wrong. The states do share power with the national government, but the Constitution says the national government has supremacy. Okay, so what are they arguing? Is this A, the Monroe Doctrine, B, nullification crisis, C, Missouri Compromise, or D, the 3/5 Compromise? All right, number 6, you have a big chart. Erie Canal before and after its construction. You kind of have the characteristics here, what they're comparing. So this is before and after. Okay. Here's the population. You could see Rochester here, and then after the construction, Buffalo here, and then after the construction, what's happening to the population. The cost to ship 1 ton of good from Buffalo to New York. Here's the cost before. Here's the cost after. Average travel time from Buffalo to New York. Here's before, here's after. What's happening there. And then the rank of New York City as a seaport. So before the Erie Canal, 5th largest. after the busiest seaport in the nation. So based on the information in this chart, what economic impact did construction of the Erie Canal have? F, it limited the number of immigrants entering the country. G, it led to the formation of national labor unions. H, it increased urbanization and reduced shipping cost. Or J, it raised the cost of shipping manufactured goods to the West. Let's look at the chart. Which one of those is correct? All right, number 7. Which of the following reversed the Supreme Court ruling in Dred Scott versus Sandford? The Dawes Act, the 14th Amendment, the Compromise of 1877, and the Kansas-Nebraska Act. So those 4, think about what did Dred Scott versus Sandford say, and then which of those reverse that or is the opposite of that. All right, number 8, what is the main reason President Monroe issued the Monroe Doctrine in 1823? F, it opposed revolutions taking place in South America. G, it established control over Panama to dig a canal. H, to establish a colonial empire in the Western Hemisphere. Or J, to warn European powers that the U.S. opposed any interference in the Western Hemisphere. 9, how did the publication of Uncle Tom's Cabin by Harriet Beecher Stowe promote the abolitionist movement? By encouraging the expansion of slavery, by depicting the brutality and inhumanity of slavery, by offering to buy slaves from Southern plantation owners, or D, by making Southern state governments restrict plantation owners. So how does this book, Uncle Tom's Cabin, promote the abolition movement? Okay, number 10, you have a quote from John O. Sullivan from 1845. It is our right of our manifest destiny to spread and to possess the whole of the continent which Providence or God has given us for the development of the great experiment of liberty and the development of self-government entrusted to us. In this passage, O'Sullivan proposes the right of manifest destiny to justify American actions to F, limit the immigration from Southern and Eastern Europe. G, acquire Canada from Great Britain. H, expand westward to the Pacific Ocean. Or J, stop foreign nations from colonizing Latin America. So, 10, the passage says, which of these is the right of manifest destiny, according to Sullivan. Okay, number 11, the primary goal of the American Temperance Society was to ban the spread of slavery to new territories, decrease the consumption of alcohol, gain the release of mentally ill people from prisons, or create a self-sufficient utopian society. So temperance, what is it? Number 12. Which of the following was a result of the Kansas-Nebraska Act of 1854? F, fighting broke out between pro-slavery and anti-slavery groups in Kansas. G, Kansas entered the Union as a slave state through popular sovereignty in 1856. Nebraskan settlers who supported the abolition movement moved to Kansas. J, the boundary established by the Missouri Compromise of 1820 was extended further south. So the result of the Kansas-Nebraska Act was what? Which of these was an effect on the Industrial Revolution on U.S. women in the early 19th century? This is number 13. Women in unions gained bargaining powers with employers. The government passed laws to improve safety for women in the workplace. Women seeking work migrated from the rural communities to cities. And state governments called conventions in support of women's suffrage. So the effect on U.S. women, which one is true about U.S. women in the early 19th century? 14, which problem did George Washington encounter when he became president? F, southern states were threatening to secede from the Union. G, the United States had large debts from the American Revolution. H, Great Britain was refusing to trade with the United States, or J, the Articles of Confederation needed to be replaced with a stronger constitution. So what would be a problem for George Washington when he became president? Number 15. This is British support of American Indians in the Northwest Territory, British impressment of American sailors, leads to a question mark, which then leads to the Treaty of Ghent. So what happens in between these? Which of the following best completes the diagram above? Boston Tea Party, War of 1812, American Revolution, or the Civil War? So what goes in that box with the question mark? All right, number 16. After General Robert E. Lee's surrender at Appomattox Courthouse, the main priority of the United States was to what? Elect a new president and vice president, complete construction of the Capitol, establish Union forts in the former Confederate states, or implement a plan to bring Confederate states back into the Union. All right, number 17. It says, according to this passage, what was the important effect of Eli Whitney's invention of the cotton gin in 1793? Okay, so it says the Eli Whitney Museum. It says, Whitney could not have foreseen the ways in which his invention would have changed society for the worse. The most significant of these was the growth of slavery. While it is true that the cotton gin reduced the labor of removing seeds, it did not reduce the need for slaves to grow and to pick the cotton. In fact, the opposite occurred. Cotton growing became so profitable for the planters that it greatly increased their demand for both land and slave labor. So again, according to the passage, what it was an important effect of the cotton gin. A, American slavery died out. B, slavery spread throughout the South with the cultivation of cotton. C, British manufacturers began using Egyptian cotton. Or D, the farming of cotton expanded to northern states. 18, the Jacksonian democracy was distinguished by the belief that, an aristocracy, or I always say that word, posed no danger to the republic. G, the National Republicans alone knew that it was the right for the people. H, political participation by the common man should be increased. Or J, political rights should be granted to women. So Jacksonian democracy, and that's aristocracy, by the way. I always say that wrong. 19, the use of interchangeable parts in the manufacturing of goods advanced the growth of the manufacturing industry because it, A, allowed the continuation of the domestic system, B, permitted large quantities of goods to be mass-produced at lower cost, C, made it possible for unskilled workers to operate machines, or D, brought an end to the common abuse of factory workers. So interchangeable parts, what does it do? All right, number 20. Oops. How did President Polk's placement of soldiers along the Rio Grande River contribute to the outbreak of the war with Mexico? F, generals of the U.S. Army desired a war to test new weapons. G, U.S. soldiers patrolled a disputed region that Mexico considered its own territory. H, the Mexican Army desired to show it was superior to the military strength of the U.S. J, Texas residents encouraged U.S. soldiers to conduct cross-border raids against Mexican outposts. All right, 21 goes with this box, the results of the U.S.-Mexican War. Use the information in the box and your knowledge of social studies to answer the following question. 21, the question is, which treaty established these terms of peace to end the war? So, which treaty ended the U.S.-Mexican War, and how do Mexico recognize Texas as part of the U.S.? The Rio Grande is made the border between Mexico and the United States, and then Mexico ceded territory that is now part of 7 present-day states. Is that the Treaty of Paris, Treaty of Washington, Adams-Onis Treaty, or the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo? Number 22. What religious group migrated westward to escape religious persecution and eventually settled in Utah? Is that the Catholics, the Mormons, the Pilgrims, or the Puritans? So which group settled in Utah? 23. Where did many Asian immigrants settle in the United States during the 1800s? Was it California along the Pacific Ocean? Texas along the Rio Grande River? The Great Plains along the Mississippi River? Or D, Alaska along the Bering Sea? Okay. 24, if you flip it over, this is your last multiple choice question. It says, use the image and the knowledge of social studies to answering the following questions. And you see your giant floating angel lady that we talked about in class. 24, the picture above. How does the artist demonstrate a belief and manifest destiny? A, women are shown leading pioneers into war. B, farmers are shown plowing and hunting animals. C, pioneers are shown moving west, bringing new transportation and communication technologies. Or D, new technology are shown being used to defeat American Indian tribes already living in the West. Remember, the question is asking you, how does the artist demonstrate a belief and manifest destiny? Which of these shows the idea of manifest destiny in the picture? Okay, the last page is matching. So if you need to go back and kind of rewind or go over some of the multiple choice questions, now's the time to do it. Okay, so for matching, it says match each description below with the correct term on the right. So what I'll do, here are the terms. A, 49er. B, civil disobedience. C, Trail of Tears. D, John Brown. F, Dred Scott versus Sanford. G, Missouri Compromise. H, Second Great Awakening. And J, secession. Okay, so those are your terms right here. Now you're going to look at the definition and you'll put those, match those, or bubble those. Okay, 25, peacefully refusing to obey laws one considers unjust. So which one of those is that term? Passed in 1820 to maintain the balance of power between the slave states and the free states. So which one was passed in dealing with power between slave and free states? 27, the tragic journey of the Cherokee people from their homeland to Indian territory. Thousands of Cherokee died. Number 28 means to withdraw, or the act of withdrawing, leaving the country. What is that called? 29, a person who went to California to find gold in 1849. 30, the renewal of religious faith in the 1790s and early 1800s led to the reform movements. 31, white abolitionist who led an attack on Harper's Ferry. And then 32, 1856 court case in which a slave sued for his freedom. It was decided that the slave could not legally bring a case to court because he was not a citizen. So what I would do is go through, maybe pause it right now and go through which ones do you know right away, and then go back and work on the ones that maybe you don't or you're a little confused on. But that was 25 through 32. Okay. This is 33 through 40. Same thing, you have some terms and some definitions. So the terms are Emancipation Proclamation, 14th Amendment, Compromise of 1850, 13th Amendment, Robert E. Lee, 54th Massachusetts Regiment, 15th Amendment, and Ulysses S. Grant. So, again, match them up and bubble them in. You might want to work on the ones that you know first right away and then go back and finish the ones that are a little confusing. 33, series of laws intended to settle major disagreements between slave states and free states, admitted California as a free state. 34, Chief General of the Confederate troops, so he's in charge of the Confederacy and their army. 35, freed the slaves in all regions of rebellion against the Union. 36, Chief General of the Union troops. So who's in charge of the Union troops? Let's see. Amendment passed in 1865 that banned slavery in the United States is 37. 38, one of the first African American regiments organized to fight in the Union in the Civil War. 39, amendment passed in 1868 that made all persons born or naturalized in the United States, including former slave citizens of the country. So an amendment for citizenship. 40, an amendment passed in 1870 that stated citizens could not be stopped from voting just because they had been slaves. So the amendment for voting, which one is that? Then it says on the back of your answer document, list as many presidents as you can remember who served from 1789 through 1877 for extra credit. So basically any president that we have talked about this year if you want some extra credit.